3 brave Marines found out a politician was selling weapons to America's enemies. They tried to tell the truth, so he tied them up in the burning desert to die. But a loyal German shepherd refused to let his brothers die alone in the sand. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The scorching sun beat down mercilessly on the endless stretch of sand. 3 Marines lay bound and helpless, their uniforms soaked with sweat and blood. The rope cut deep into their wrists as they struggled against their bonds. Water! Gasped Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, his lips cracked and bleeding. Please, just a drop. Corporal Sarah Chin tried to speak but only managed a whisper. How could he do this to us? Private Tommy Walsh, barely 19 years old, had tears streaming down his dusty face. We trusted him. We believed in him. But they weren't alone in that desert hell. A German shepherd, battle-scarred and loyal, sat watching them with intelligent brown eyes. This dog had followed them into the desert, and now refused to leave their side. 6 months earlier, these 3 Marines were heroes. They had served their country with honor in Afghanistan, saved countless lives and returned home to a hero's welcome. But they had seen something they weren't supposed to see. Something that could destroy the career of one of the most powerful politicians in Washington. Senator William Blackwood was running for president. His campaign was built on patriotism and supporting the troops. But behind closed doors he was selling weapons to enemy forces. The same weapons that were killing American soldiers overseas. The 3 Marines had discovered documents proving his crimes. They tried to do the right thing. They went to the authorities. They believed in justice. They were wrong. Sergeant Rodriguez? The voice on the phone was smooth and confident. This is Senator Blackwood. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Mike's hand tightened on the phone. Senator, we have evidence of your illegal weapons deals. We're taking this to the FBI. A cold laugh echoed through the speaker. I don't think so, Sergeant. You see, I have friends everywhere. The FBI, the CIA, even the Pentagon. No one will believe 3 disturbed veterans over a respected senator. We have proof, Sarah said, leaning into the phone. Had proof? Blackwood corrected. My people visited your apartments last night. Such a shame about that fire in your storage unit, Rodriguez. And Chin, your computer seems to have crashed permanently. As for you, Walsh, your backup drive was corrupted beyond repair. The 3 Marines looked at each other in horror. Everything was gone. But don't worry, the senator continued. I'm not a cruel man. I'm giving you a chance to disappear quietly. Take this as a warning. But they wouldn't be silenced. They decided to go public anyway to tell their story to the media. It was the last mistake they would ever make. It happened on a Tuesday night. Each Marine was taken from their homes by men in black masks. No witnesses. No evidence. No trace. They woke up in the back of a military truck, their hands and feet bound, speeding through the darkness toward an unknown destination. The truck finally stopped in the middle of the Mojave Desert, miles from any civilization. Get them out, ordered a voice they recognized. Senator Blackwood stepped into the moonlight, his expensive suit looking out of place in the desert wasteland. Senator, Mike spat. You can't do this. We're American soldiers. You were soldiers, Blackwood replied coldly. Now you're just 3 troublemakers who are about to disappear forever. The desert is hungry and it never gives up its secrets. His men dragged the Marines from the truck and tied them to metal stakes driven deep into the sand. The ropes were tight, cutting off circulation. There was no shade, no water, no hope. The sun will rise in 6 hours, Blackwood said, checking his gold watch. The temperature will reach 120 degrees by noon. You'll be dead by sunset. The vultures will clean up the evidence. As Blackwood's convoy disappeared into the night, leaving only tire tracks in the sand, something moved in the darkness. A German shepherd emerged from behind a cluster of rocks, its ears alert, its nose testing the air. This was Rex, a military working dog who had served alongside these Marines in Afghanistan. He had retired from service but never forgot his brothers in arms. When they didn't return his calls, he had tracked them using skills learned in countless combat missions. Rex approached the bound Marines cautiously. His tail wagged once when he recognized their scent, but his eyes remained focused and determined. Rex. Tommy whispered in disbelief. How did you find us? The dog whined softly and began gnawing at the ropes binding Tommy's hands. His teeth were strong, his determination stronger. As the sun rose like a merciless fireball, the temperature began to climb. The Marines were already dehydrated from their ordeal, and the desert heat was like an oven. Rex worked tirelessly, chewing through rope after rope. His paws were bleeding from digging around the stakes, but he never stopped. When the ropes wouldn't give way fast enough, he began digging underneath them, trying to loosen the stakes from the hardened earth. "Good boy, Rex," Sarah gasped. "Keep going." The dog paused only to share precious drops of water from a small pool he had found among the rocks. He would soak his fur and let the Marines lick the moisture from his coat. It wasn't much, but it kept them alive. Hour after hour Rex worked. His tongue hung out from exhaustion, his paws were raw and bleeding, but he refused to give up. This was his pack, his family, and he would die before abandoning them. By midday the temperature had reached 115 degrees. The Marines were slipping in and out of consciousness. Their skin was burning, their bodies shutting down from heat stroke. But Rex had managed to free Tommy's right hand. The young Marine, using his last reserves of strength, began working on his other bonds while Rex moved to help Sarah. "We're not going to make it," Mike whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yes, we are," Tommy said, his freed hand now working desperately on the rope around his ankles. "Rex didn't come all this way for us to give up now." The German shepherd seemed to understand. He barked once, sharply, as if to say, "Fight. Don't you dare quit on me." As the afternoon wore on, something incredible happened. Rex, exhausted from his efforts, suddenly lifted his head and barked toward the horizon. His ears were perked, his body tense with excitement. In the distance, a dust cloud was approaching. A search and rescue helicopter had spotted the vultures circling overhead and come to investigate. "Here!" Tommy shouted with his newly freed voice, waving his loose hand frantically. "We're here." The helicopter circled once, then landed 50 yards away. The rescue team rushed forward with water, medical supplies, and bolt cutters to free the remaining bonds. "How did you survive out here?" the lead paramedic asked in amazement. The three Marines looked at Rex, who was now lying exhausted in the shade of Tommy's body, his mission complete. "We had a guardian angel," Sarah whispered. "One with 4 legs and the heart of a warrior." The rescue made national headlines. 3 decorated Marines found tied up in the desert, saved by a heroic military dog. The story was too big to suppress, too public to cover up. Senator Blackwood tried to spin it as a terrorist attack, claiming he had no knowledge of the Marines' situation. But Rex had done more than save their lives. He had preserved the evidence. Hidden in his collar was a small recording device, a leftover from his military service that the Marines had activated before their capture. Every word Blackwood had spoken in the desert was recorded with crystal clarity. "The desert is hungry and it never gives up its secrets," his own voice played back on every news channel in America. "You'll be dead by sunset. The vultures will clean up the evidence." The trial of Senator William Blackwood became the most watched legal proceeding of the decade. The evidence was overwhelming, not just the recording but financial records, witness testimony, and proof of the weapons deals that started it all. The 3 Marines testified with courage and dignity. Their voices were strong, their resolve unbreakable. They had survived the desert and they would survive this too. But the star witness was Rex. The German shepherd sat in the courtroom, his service medals gleaming on his collar, as the prosecutor played the recording that would send a corrupt politician to prison for life. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the prosecutor said, "this dog showed more loyalty to America than a United States senator. He risked his life to save 3 heroes, while Senator Blackwood left them to die for his own greed. Guilty on all counts." The words echoed through the packed courtroom. Senator William Blackwood, once considered a future president, was now a convicted felon facing life in prison without parole. The 3 Marines hugged each other as tears streamed down their faces. Justice had been served, but more importantly, the truth had prevailed. Rex, sitting at their feet, wagged his tail once and looked up at his humans with those same intelligent brown eyes that had watched over them in the desert. The aftermath of the trial brought changes no one expected. Mike Rodriguez was promoted to sergeant major and put in charge of military ethics training. Sarah Chin became a victim's advocate, helping other service members who faced retaliation for reporting crimes. Tommy Walsh, still just 20 years old, was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his courage in exposing corruption. But the biggest change was in how America viewed its heroes. The story of 3 Marines and a loyal dog reminded the nation that true patriotism isn't about powerful positions or political speeches. It's about ordinary people doing extraordinary things when it matters most. Rex was awarded the Dickin Medal, the highest honor for military animals. But his greatest reward was simply being home with his pack, his family, the Marines who had never stopped believing in the promise that no one gets left behind. Years later, the desert where 3 Marines nearly died became a memorial park. A bronze statue stands at its center, 3 figures bound together, and beside them, a German shepherd standing guard. The inscription reads, "To those who serve with honor, who speak truth to power, and who never abandon their brothers and sisters in arms. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to do what's right despite the cost." Visitors come from around the world to see the memorial. They read the story, they touch the bronze paws of the dog statue for luck, and they remember that heroes come in all forms. Some wear uniforms and some wear fur. At the dedication ceremony, an old man in a general's uniform approached the 3 Marines. His eyes were filled with tears as he saluted them sharply. "I want to apologize," he said. "I should have believed you from the beginning. I should have protected you better." "General," Mike replied, returning the salute, "we're all still learning what it means to do the right thing. The important thing is that we never stop trying." Rex, now gray around the muzzle but still strong, sat between them. His service was over, but his watch continued. Once a Marine, always a Marine, whether you have 2 legs or 4. The sun was setting over the memorial, painting the desert in shades of gold and red. It was the same sun that had once threatened to kill 3 innocent Marines. Now it illuminated their victory, their survival, and their unbreakable bond with a dog who refused to let them die. Back at the military base, Colonel James Murphy was getting worried. The 3 Marines had not reported for duty in 2 days. This was not like them. They were good soldiers who always followed orders. "Something is wrong," the colonel told his assistant. Rodriguez, Chin, and Walsh never missed duty without calling. He started making phone calls. He called their families. He called their friends. Nobody had seen them. It was like they had disappeared into thin air. The colonel knew these Marines well. They had served under him in Afghanistan. They were honest, brave, and loyal. If they were missing, something bad had happened. "Get me a search team," he ordered. "We're going to find our people." While Rex was working to save the Marines in the desert, search teams were looking everywhere. They checked hospitals, police stations, and military facilities. They found nothing. But Colonel Murphy didn't give up. He remembered that the 3 Marines had been worried about something before they disappeared. They had talked about some kind of evidence. They had seemed scared. What were they investigating? He asked himself. He went through their files and found notes about Senator Blackwood. The notes talked about weapons deals and money transfers. The colonel began to understand what had happened. "They found something big," he said. "And someone wanted to stop them from talking." The colonel called the FBI. He called the CIA. But just like Senator Blackwood had said, the corrupt politician had friends everywhere. Nobody wanted to help. "I'm sorry, Colonel," the FBI agent said. "We have no evidence of any crime. The senator is a respected man. Your Marines probably just went on leave without telling anyone." But the colonel knew better. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He knew when his people were in danger. On the second day of searching, a park ranger called the base. He had found tire tracks in the desert. Big truck tires that didn't belong there. "The tracks lead deep into the Mojave Desert," the ranger said. "Nobody goes out there. It's too dangerous." Colonel Murphy felt his heart race. The desert was the perfect place to hide something. Or someone. "Get the helicopters ready," he ordered. "We're going into the desert." But the desert is huge. It would take days to search every area. The colonel didn't know if they had days. If his Marines were out there, they might already be dead. Just as the search helicopters were getting ready to fly, something amazing happened. A weather satellite took pictures of the desert. The pictures showed something strange. There were vultures flying in circles over one small area. Lots of vultures. More than normal. "That's not good," the helicopter pilot said. "Vultures only circle like that when something is dying." Colonel Murphy's blood ran cold. But he had to hope. Maybe they were not too late. "Fly to those coordinates," he ordered. "And fly fast." The helicopter raced across the desert. The colonel looked down at the endless sand and rocks. How could anyone survive out there? Then he saw them. 3 small figures tied to stakes in the sand. And a dog sitting beside them. "There," he shouted. "Take us down." The rescue team jumped from the helicopter before it fully landed. They ran toward the Marines with water and medical supplies. Colonel Murphy knelt beside Mike Rodriguez. The Marine was barely breathing. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His skin was burned red from the sun. "Rodriguez," the colonel said softly. "Can you hear me?" Mike's eyes opened slowly. When he saw his colonel, tears began to flow down his face. "Sir," he whispered. "We tried to do the right thing." "I know, son," the colonel said. I know. You're safe now. The medics worked quickly to cut the ropes and give the Marines water. They were dehydrated and suffering from heat stroke, but they were alive. And Rex? The brave German shepherd was exhausted but still alert. He had stayed awake for 2 days straight, guarding his humans. Now that help had arrived, he finally allowed himself to rest. The 3 Marines were rushed to the military hospital. They were in serious condition but stable. The doctors said they would live, thanks to the dog who had saved them. Colonel Murphy sat beside their beds as they recovered. He wanted to hear their story from the beginning. "Tell me everything," he said. Over the next few hours, the Marines told him about the weapons deals, the evidence they had found, and Senator Blackwood's threats. They told him about the kidnapping in the desert. "And Rex?" the colonel asked, looking at the German shepherd who was sleeping on the floor beside Tommy's bed. "He saved us, sir," Tommy said. "He never gave up. He worked for 2 days straight to free us. He shared his water with us. He kept us alive." The colonel petted Rex's head gently. "Good boy," he said. "Very good boy." Word of the rescue spread quickly. Soon news trucks were outside the hospital. Reporters wanted to interview the Marines and hear their story. At first, Colonel Murphy tried to keep the story quiet. Military business should stay military business. But then he realized something important. "The people need to know the truth," he told his superiors. "If we stay quiet, Senator Blackwood wins. He gets away with his crimes." So the colonel arranged a press conference. The 3 Marines, still weak but determined, told their story to the world. The room was silent as they described their ordeal. Grown men and women wiped tears from their eyes as Tommy talked about Rex's loyalty and courage. But the biggest shock came when they played the recording from Rex's collar. Senator Blackwood's own voice admitting to the crimes and ordering their deaths. The recording played on every news channel in America. Social media exploded with anger and support for the Marines. Senator Blackwood tried to deny everything. He held his own press conference and called the Marines liars. He said the recording was fake. "These are disturbed veterans," he claimed. "They are making up stories to get attention." But the evidence was too strong. Financial records showed the illegal weapons deals. Phone records showed calls between Blackwood and arms dealers. Video cameras had recorded him leaving his office on the night the Marines disappeared. Within hours, other politicians began demanding his arrest. The president himself called for a full investigation. "No one is above the law," the president said in a televised address. "Especially those who betray the brave men and women who serve our country." FBI agents arrested Senator Blackwood at his mansion. He was handcuffed and led away in front of television cameras from around the world. The man who had once dreamed of being president was now facing life in prison. His political career was over. His reputation was destroyed. His friends abandoned him. The same people who had helped him cover up his crimes now pretended they had never known him. But for the 3 Marines recovering in the hospital, justice was just beginning. The trial lasted 6 months. Every day the courtroom was packed with reporters, politicians, and ordinary citizens who wanted to see justice done. The Marines testified with strength and dignity. They told their story calmly and clearly. They showed no anger or hatred, only a desire for truth. The defense lawyers tried to attack their character. They claimed the Marines were liars and criminals themselves. But the evidence was too strong. The recording was played dozens of times. Each time, Senator Blackwood's voice filled the courtroom. "You'll be dead by sunset. The vultures will clean up the evidence." The jury listened to everything. They saw the evidence. They heard the testimony. And they made their decision quickly. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor," the jury foreman replied. The courtroom was completely silent. Everyone held their breath. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of treason, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of arms dealing with enemy forces, we find the defendant guilty." The list went on and on. Guilty on every single charge. Senator Blackwood collapsed in his chair. His lawyers looked shocked. But the 3 Marines just held hands and cried tears of relief. Justice had been served. The day after the verdict, there was a parade in Washington, D.C. The 3 Marines rode in an open car, waving to thousands of cheering people. But the biggest cheer came when Rex appeared. The German shepherd wore his military medals and rode in his own special car. Children ran alongside, calling his name and throwing flowers. The president met them at the White House. He gave each Marine the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor a civilian can receive. And for Rex, the president had a special medal made just for him. It was shaped like a bone and had the words "Hero Dog" engraved on it. "This dog," the president said, "represents the best of America. Loyalty, courage, and the refusal to abandon those we love." After the trial and ceremonies, the three Marines had to decide what to do with their lives. They had been through something terrible, but they had also learned something important about themselves. Mike Rodriguez decided to stay in the military. He wanted to help train young soldiers and teach them about honor and courage. Sarah Chin became a lawyer. She wanted to help other people who were being bullied by powerful politicians and criminals. Tommy Walsh, still young and full of energy, started a foundation to help military dogs. He called it the Rex Foundation, and it provided medical care and homes for retired military dogs. And Rex? He retired from military service but stayed with Tommy. The two of them traveled around the country visiting schools and telling their story. Years passed and the story of the three Marines and Rex became legend. Books were written about them. Movies were made about their courage. Children learned about them in school. But the most important lesson was simple. Good people must stand up to bad people no matter how powerful they are. The Marines could have stayed quiet. They could have let Senator Blackwood continue his crimes. It would have been easier and safer. But they chose to do what was right. And when they were punished for it, they didn't give up hope. Rex could have run away when he found them in the desert. He could have saved himself and left them to die. But he chose to stay. He chose to fight. He chose to never give up on his friends. 10 years after the desert rescue, a beautiful memorial was built where the Marines had been found. It shows 3 bronze figures tied together, and beside them, a German shepherd standing guard. People come from all over the world to see it. They read the story carved in stone. They learn about courage and loyalty in doing what's right. The memorial has a special plaque that reads, "To all who serve with honor, who speak truth even when it's dangerous, and who never abandon their brothers and sisters." Real heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Every year on the anniversary of the rescue, the 3 Marines return to the memorial. They are older now with gray hair and wrinkles. But their bond is still strong. And Rex? He lived to be 15 years old, which is very old for a German shepherd. When he died, he was buried beside the memorial with full military honors. Thousands of people came to his funeral. Soldiers, politicians, and ordinary citizens who remembered what he had done. This story teaches us many things. It teaches us that power without honor is worthless. It teaches us that loyalty and friendship are worth more than money or fame. Most importantly, it teaches us that anyone can be a hero. You don't need to be big or strong or famous. You just need to care about other people and be willing to help them when they need it most. The 3 Marines were heroes because they chose truth over safety. Rex was a hero because he chose love over fear. In a world that sometimes seems dark and hopeless, their story reminds us that good always wins in the end. It might take time and it might be hard, but justice will come. And sometimes, when things look impossible, help comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it comes on 4 legs with a wet nose and a wagging tail. Sometimes the best heroes are the ones who can't speak our language but understand our hearts perfectly. The desert tried to kill 3 brave Marines. A corrupt politician tried to silence them forever. But love and loyalty were stronger than hate and greed. That's a lesson worth remembering. That's a story worth telling. That's the kind of hope that makes everything worthwhile. This true story reminds us that real heroes walk among us every day. Some wear uniforms, some wear fur, but all of them share one thing: the courage to do what's right when it matters most.